office chair, and he's like, "You're not a money player, are you?" I was like, that's crushing right there. We're playing orchestral music. I mean, we're talking about something that's performed live in front of an audience. You know, you get one shot. You don't stop and go back, right? So hearing that, I think, from somebody that I really revered, especially at the time, it was hard. And so that always just like sat on with me in the practice room of like, you got to be able to nail this thing. So it was weird.
You'd be surprised how many performers have anxiety in the minute they step on stage because they've trained themselves to be okay in that setting. They may be actually very shy off stage or not able to really engage. If it's not on stage, they haven't trained themselves to be okay with the crowd.
See, that was always fascinating too, because there would be guest artists that would come through, and some would talk about performance anxiety as part of a master class. And you'd meet some, and you're like, wow, this person doesn't speak very much. They don't speak a lot at all. In their regular life, they're not very vibrant in the way that they move. And then they get out there, and they're just going to town. And they talk about it almost like being a character that they're trying to play. I mean, we hear, I think people on television talk about that, not just the character that they're trying to embody, but the person that's playing the person as a character. That was never a thing that really fit for me, but that was always an interesting take.
You know, one of the things that we have to realize is that nobody knows your talents and abilities better than you. So no matter how many people out there are critiquing what you do, you know yourself. You are the expert. And most people wouldn't, if you made a mistake, most people wouldn't know you well enough to know that mistake was even there, because they hear the overall experience.
Right.
But you may know it's there, but the rest of us taking the perspective of the other, most people are going to say at the end, that was amazing, because we hear the whole thing, whereas you hear those little tiny parts that we're not trained to know how to do.
Well, and I know I'm speaking in a musical context, but I'm sure it's in, I remember my doctor talking about beta blockers and saying, I prescribe it to musicians and surgeons and people that are in all these very high stress situations. Building in that conversation of like, oh, here comes that part I always have trouble with, right? And that narrative that you sort of build in, that I need to try a little bit more of that still, I think, sometimes.
Absolutely. You know, accepting responsibility for what you do well is part of life's experience. Even in our partial hospitalization program, we do a lot of meditation, so you know what you do well, and you have fun with what challenges you, so that you can just simply add another skill to the skills that you already have. Because nobody knows what's going on in your head. We think you're amazing. Most people do.
Yeah.
So, you're the only one in the room that's really being hard on yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I think the reason I was trying to think, like, why did I just bring up what I brought up? And it was to your point of, we have a narrative in our head that an audience does not know exists, right?
Absolutely.
They don't know that you're worried about something coming up in 4 minutes from now, 3 measures from now, coming up right now. Right? They don't know that you're worried about what you just did 10 seconds ago and that you messed up, to your point.
Yeah.
And it's hard to break that.
Yeah. In an audience, whether it be in the classroom or even in the home setting with children and parents, we tend to see things with hope and perfection. So one of the clients here says, I'm fine as long as you don't go into detail. And I think that's most of us. Yes, if I get in there are things we're all not skilled at. We might enjoy them, but we're not necessarily skilled, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine to be exactly where you are.
Does anything make you nervous?
I think I get nervous right beforehand, but once it starts...
Before what starts?
Before whatever it is that I'm out of my element.
Okay.
I get a little nervous before I meet a new client and a new family, and I think that is part of the respect that we have in meeting someone new. You don't know what their expectations are, what their particular needs are. But if you normalize it, you just incorporate it into what's going on in your life that day.
Yeah.
You know.
See, I've always found it disarming a little bit to even just call out the elephants in the room, you know? I mean, honestly, that's why I said it earlier, like when we started, about being nervous, because it's like, I mean, I'm fine at this point. I think part of it was just like, you know, you start getting in the whole like setting up the gear and making sure all that kind of stuff is working. You're just not like fully in the right mindset. I'm good now. But yeah, it's just one of those things of like, you're probably going to sense it, so why not bring it up? And I think that empathy that we could share together often makes it a much more comfortable situation.
Absolutely. And we are harder on ourselves than we would ever be with someone else. And so if we give ourselves the same kindness and grace we give other people, we are a lot happier about our performance in all kinds of different areas.
Anxiety is one of like a lot of the issues that we would deal with. Anxiety is largely created by our thoughts. So we do have a little control over how much of that we experience. There are some biological aspects to it, of course, but it's fueled a lot from what we think. And if we are thinking a certain way, if we don't have the right dialogue in our head, if we allow ourselves to start thinking 4 minutes ahead of what's going on now, we lose touch with now. And a lot of the meditation is about not doing the 4 minutes ahead and coming now. Let's deal with the moment. And why am I thinking about something I might make a mistake on 4 minutes from now when I'm here, and I need to make this moment worthwhile for who I'm with.
Yeah. See, you bring that up, and I was also thinking about that this morning as a business owner in particular. I approach business sort of like trying to always put yourself out of business in a way, just trying to find your vulnerabilities and, you know, making sure the product market fit is still there, and do we have the right processes and everything else to be able to do what we need to do. And so I'm curious your take on a business perspective of what's like rational, what's normal as far as trying to always think ahead in thinking like, oh, I'm aware that we don't do X, Y, and Z. I know we should. We're not doing it. And I'm not sure maybe even when, like a timeline of when we can start doing that. And there's anxiety in that. Like, how do you know when that train of thought turns into something that's actually negative to be part of?
It's something that's healthy to look at where your weaknesses are and to think, and that's strategic, not necessarily a bad thing. And I think it's smart to know where the shortcomings are. In orientation, I explained to the people coming in to work with us, there's a lot that goes on, especially, I mean, we're dealing with a hospital, patient care, the unknown element of the patient coming in. There's a lot that goes into to make that perfect, and it may not be. And it may not be because of something we've done. It may be something external that we haven't been able to think of. But it's smart to think through the things that we can predict and that we can feasibly prepare for. One, sticking with the stage theme, I usually do give an example. You know, you pay so much money for a Taylor Swift ticket. You know, why? And when all this was going on, I'm thinking it's because everyone just recently went through this craze, or still are, about Taylor Swift tickets. I'm thinking, is it worth that? Can you really see her from, you know, how far back you're going to be and all that? The ticket itself, you're paying to see this person, but it's really not. It's the Taylor Swift experience that you're paying for.
And also the ability to say you were there, right?
Yeah.
I was there.
But if you go and the show's completely botched, is it worth the money? So you're going to pay for the Taylor Swift experience, and so it costs a lot of money to have someone to battery up her mic, to tape the stage to show her where to go, to have the lights wherever they need to be. And as sad as it is, that show requires the person who's responsible for the batteries in the mic, because if she puts the mic up to her mouth and nothing's there, and they have to go through stage change and whatever it may be, and hold on a minute, someone didn't have their stuff right, we'll be right back on stage, that ticket loses its value. But it's not what happens. People walk away super excited and saying that was completely worth it.
I find that concept of expectation to be really fascinating, because there are a lot of artists or comedians or just people on stage that I've seen where they've built a big reputation. I have my opinion going. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Lexington Business Show. Go right now, rate and review the podcast. It's how we grow and thrive and how we get more listeners and get to do a lot more cool stuff here on the show. Thank you.